remember I would go back for Thanksgiving. I dropped out of school. My mom's like, what are you working on? And my mom would tell her friends like, oh, it's the 911 thing. And there was a lot of times where I thought, well, maybe I should just go and take the FANG job that I was thinking about in college. If you call 911 and you don't speak English, you get dramatically different service than if you do. And it's an equity issue. I don't think I could do anything else.
Hey everyone, I'm Karl Alomar, Managing Partner at M13. Today's conversation is with Mike Chime, co-founder and CEO of Prepared, alongside Ed Elson, host of Prof G Markets and First Time Founders. I first met Mike when he was a student at Yale. What started as a conversation after class turned into years of us working together, as he, Gleicher, and Neal Soni transformed an idea born from personal experience into a company helping modernize emergency response across the country. At M13, we invest early in visionary founders, building through structural shifts that create new markets. What stood out about Mike from the beginning wasn't just the mission. It was his ability to move from conviction to action. Every time he encountered a new challenge, he figured it out and kept going. In this conversation, we talk about dropping out, taking unconventional paths, choosing the right partners, and building a company around a future that doesn't exist yet. Let's get into it.
Good to be with you guys. Good to see you again. I've had you on my show before. You crushed it.
We didn't meet in person, though. I didn't know he was like 6'4". But it's good to see you again, too.
I appreciate that. And good to see you. Good to meet you, Karl.
Good to meet you.
Good to have everyone here. Everyone seems like they're in a pretty good mood after last night. I know I am. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Oh, someone's shaking his head. Not a fan. Okay, we'll send him out later. So we want to have a discussion here about your guys' relationship. You've obviously had huge success. Prepared was acquired in 2025 by Axon, which was just an incredible exit. First, though, what is Prepared and what does the company actually do?
Okay, there's a short answer and then a long answer to this, and I'll try to do the middle of the two. But Prepared helps 911 centers better handle 911 calls. And namely now through AI, but there's been a few iterations of the company over time. Pre-AI, we would help citizens better share information from their mobile device. So things like a picture or a video or a text. Now with AI, we help the operator better address the situation via improving the quality of the information. So today, if you walk into a 911 center, the call taker is literally listening to your call and then typing what they hear. You go on a Zoom call today, that would be crazy if there weren't a transcript on that was summarizing it, but when you call in your worst moment, that's what they're doing, right? They're listening and typing while someone's yelling the information. And so we have AI that sits next to that call, transcribes it in the background, summarizes it. It's purpose-built for public safety, so it knows the information that's actually useful to the responder and pulls that out, or other things like language translation. So again, not a commonly known thing, but if you call 911 and you don't speak English, you get dramatically different service than if you do. And it's an equity issue. We just think that that same taxpayer dollar, that same person that lives in our communities that doesn't speak English well, should have the same level of service. And today the process is they being the call taker, hit a button and they wait. So say the call is in Vietnamese, they hit the button, and for a bespoke language like that, you could be waiting 5, 6, 7 minutes on a 911 call. We translate it instantly. So we know the information, we send it out to responders. We're deployed in about 1,000 agencies across the US. We handle about 80 million 911 calls a year. There's about 250 million a year in the US, so we got work to do. That's what I hear from that number. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We started the company 7 years ago, but we're working on 911 just 4 years ago. So the team has made a lot of progress in that time. Saved a lot of lives, which has been cool. But yeah, that's what we do.
I have a shorter explanation in just maybe 5 words. Prepared saves lives, 3 words.
Boom.
That's basically what Prepared does. It saves lives. And I think that was probably one of the most inspiring parts of it, from where I sat watching these guys build it.
So let's go back 7 years. You are an undergraduate at Yale. I think you're on the football team, is that right?
I was on the football team.
On the football team. And you start to have an idea for a company.
Let's be clear, he was a linebacker.
That's giving me more credit. I was actually defensive lineman.
Okay, even worse. He's a defensive lineman, 290 pounds when we met.
That might be. Unfortunately, that's true.
And you discover him. How did you guys meet?
Oh, maybe he discovered me.
Or maybe he discovered you.
I definitely discovered Karl. I think you tell the story best.
I mean, you know, you ask two people what happened, you're going to get two totally different stories. But I will share my part, and then maybe you can correct everything I get wrong. I was invited to come and speak at an MBA class at Yale, and Mike was in the class. Dylan was in the class too, apparently. I didn't find that out until about 2 years later, but apparently he was there too. But at the end of the class, obviously, as it does, there was a class about scaling and culture and building organizations. And at the end of the class, you know, Mike came down to speak to me, and a bunch of other people did. And Mike did the smart thing, and rather than trying to battle through and have a conversation with me there, he was like, "Can I just walk you to your Uber?" And I felt like, well, I'm going to have this personal 290-pound bodyguard taking me. I feel very special.
Give you a choice, right?
A little intimidated, but yeah, I walked with him, and you guys can tell already in the first 5 minutes, this is a very charming, good-looking young man. Not that that's what I'm looking for in life, but he's very charming guy.
Important founder quality, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the key thing was that Mike was really able to express his passion. And I think he has a whole backstory to this, but a real underlying passion for what he wanted to do. And at the time, the concept was more oriented around school safety and experiences with shooters at school and kind of how to address that and how to resolve that. And that was kind of the beginning of his thinking around how he can create an emergency solution that actually saves lives. And the whole passion and the whole energy was behind this idea of saving lives. And you know, could I help myself? I took a liking to him, and I think we spent maybe almost a year from there just speaking every month, me giving him guidance and thoughts and advice, and him evolving and developing the concept. And the one thing that just really struck me is that every time we had a conversation, I would lay out a whole bunch of like fantastical things that he should do. And then a month later, we talk again. He's like, "Okay, I did all those. What do I do next?" And I was like, "Man, this is a guy that gets, you know, mind my French, but gets stuff done." And so, you know, I guess we can talk a little bit into what led to the actual investment, but ultimately over a year of knowing Mike before we actually invested, he just, you know, month over month just built more and more confidence. I just saw, you know, the shining opportunity of what he could build and what he could do as an individual. And that's really what inspired me as much as the business concept itself.
I think a lot of young people who are starting companies, thinking about starting companies, would want to know, what did Mike do in that walk to the Uber that was compelling enough that you said, "Yes, I'm interested," and then you were the first institutional
that's such a good
check?
question.
Like, how did he carry himself? How was it not annoying, perhaps, that he forces you to go to, like, we got to walk to the car? I mean, what was it about him?
Yeah, I mean, like you said it yourself, like key founder trait is just this ability to, on one side have charm, and on the other side be able to express a vision in a concise, clean way. Yeah. And I think what Mike did is he expressed such a natural human passion for what he wanted to solve in the world. And I guess maybe it was luck, or maybe just by you know, fate. It's something that really struck me in kind of the concept of the tragedy of school shootings, the tragedy of people dying unnecessarily, the tragedy of what happens in the world, and somebody who has such a deep passion for wanting to solve that. At the time, for me, it was like an aspiring young entrepreneur that just wanted to build something. I had no idea if he had any skills or had any capability or anything, but just feeling that energy and that passion in someone who is just so motivated to try and fix a clear problem in the world. I would say any established business person in the later part of their career is going to be inspired by that and is going to want to be a part of that person's journey. So at the beginning, for me, it was just like, hey, if I can be helpful, let me be helpful. It was no more of a commitment than that. But I think that's all Mike needed. You know, all he needed was that open door. And then over the next year, we were able to build the beginnings of what's turned out to be a really amazing relationship. And yeah, he just be real, like speak from your passion. If somebody came up to me and started throwing, you know, KPIs at me and big numbers and trying to be, you know, have kind of hubris, that wouldn't interest me at all. But like the mix of humility and passion and kind of commitment and dedication to his cause, honestly, it just, you feel it when if anybody here gets a chance to have a conversation with Mike, you'll feel it just in the conversation you have with him. And I think it's a special trait.
Yeah. So let's hear a bit about how you then start to build this thing. Take us through when you finally get that check from M13 and then you start to scale the company. What was the story like, Mike?
And I think building off what you said, Karl, one thing that was innate in building the company that retrospectively was quite helpful was we didn't intend it to be a company initially. So I tell the story. I grew up in a town right outside of where there was an active shooter event in 2012. 2012, I was 13 years old. My town was very small, blue collar. Neither parent graduated college. I was the first to go. And you just saw how that rippled. It was a catalyst for me. I went to college thinking about those types of problems. And that's what we built. Dylan, Neal, and I built this simple app schools would use in emergencies. And the basic idea was that it was simple. It was, hey, if you had an emergency, a school was dependent on a walkie-talkie or a PA system to communicate it. It caused delays unnecessarily. We ended up with a lot of schools just giving the solution away for free. We thought it was a better way and that they should use it, et cetera. It was only by happenstance that we got connected to 911. And so I remember going to the school and saying, because COVID had happened, K through 12 was out of session, my senior class was taking the year off school, and I said, school, what more can we do for you? And they said, well, I have all this data, I want to share it with 911, how might I do that? And I'm like, I don't know, just call them. Wouldn't anybody just call 911? And they're like, well, no, what about a picture or a video? And I just found that fascinating. And I walked up to a 911 center and just knocked on the door and said, hey, I have all this data, I'd love to give it to you, I think it's life-saving, what's the next step? And then they walked me through the center and I realized the technology just simply couldn't take it in. Right? It was built on the assumption all the calls were landlines. And so to kind of make a long story short there, it did not intend to be a company. I was just passionate about, hey, could we save lives? And so it was always problem-centric. I think one of the kind of failure modes for a company is you're kind of people talk about this all the time, but you're a solution in search of a problem. We never had the opportunity to even fall into that trap because it was always, hey, we were out to solve a problem from the very beginning. And so that was a thing that was always quite useful. But yeah, I forget your question. It's just
well, I wanted to hear more about how you then actually become a company and start working together as well.
Yeah, I think soon enough we realized that, okay, like capital and people being excited about it, a company is probably useful to spread the idea. And so when I walked into the 911 center for the first time and saw the technology and saw how antiquated it was, I got passionate about building that. The thing that was clear was that, we could do much better here. And there's a little bit of kind of context that is useful, but I won't bore everyone with the details. But people had tried to change 911 for a long time. And this is true in a lot of industries that you can just clearly go in and see the technology's poor. But they were kind of like, hey, I've built better, go to it. And they didn't have an understanding of like how we would sequence that change over time. And so one of the things that we did that was quite useful in retrospect was we started over the top of those core systems and we gave the technology away for free. We understood that working with government, the hardest thing wasn't actually getting people to pay. Like contracts were super sticky. It was actually getting in and showing value. And that was controversial at the time. So we blitzed, we got to 1,000 centers, but then we just focused on solving problem after problem, right? But with the mission in mind.
Yeah, I would rewind it a little bit. I think you missed a whole chunk in the middle there. So we knew each other for a school calendar year. The following summer, you got a Thiel Fellowship.
I did.
And first kid in his family to go to college, got himself into Yale and decided, hey, I'm going to drop out after my third year.
Yeah.
So I'm sure his parents weren't very happy about it.
They were thrilled, right?
She was really upset, my mom.
But what was amazing for me was it was the burn the bridges moment. It was the dedication to say, I'm in, I'm committed, I'm doing this. And that, I think, was the message that was like, okay, this is really happening. This guy's pretty special. Okay, we're going to put money behind this. We're going to support him. And, God bless Mike. He was very, very adamant to say, Karl, I really want you involved. I really want you in. I really want you in. And he was persistent about that, too. So it wasn't, it was a very two-way street. Like we both were came to a moment of realization that this is really happening. It makes total sense to be involved. And that's really what drove our investment decision. And so through the summer, you left. I don't know if Dylan and Neal left.
We all left together.
You did? Okay. So you got the Thiel check. Yeah. But they left anyway. So
we put it into the company. So.
Okay, that's good. That's good. But either way, they all left. They burned the bridges. It was a commitment, and then at that point, it was kind of just the beginning of the road. And as Mike said, I think it was just dealing with one challenge at a time, and it was building blocks, and then just that momentum started building on itself from that point forward.
What are your views, Karl, on dropping out of college to start a company? Obviously, we have a success story right here, but I think that's in a lot of people's minds is that the right decision? Maybe it did cost you something. What are your views? And then maybe we'll hear Mike's views.
I mean, when it's the right decision, it's the right decision.
Yeah.
When it's the wrong decision, it's the wrong decision. You're never going to know until you've done it. Listen, I went to great schools. I will never discount the value of education, the value of a degree. But I will say that a degree starts your career, but a degree doesn't create your career.
Yeah.
And so if you're truly, truly passionate and you have the backing and you have the belief, then really what you're doing is you're betting on yourself. And I think anybody that's going to build anything really meaningful in the world has to be willing to take risk and has to be willing to bet on themselves. So that's not a promotion to say everyone should step out of college. I think you need to understand what it's going to do for you versus what you can do yourself. And you need to really look in the mirror and really assess, like, are you willing to take that risk? Are you willing to make that decision in life? And again, it's a much bigger decision for Mike. First kid in his family to go to school, and it's Yale of all the schools. So that's an even bigger decision than just, I'm going to community college and I'm going to drop out to go start a company.
Right.
But I will say that, as I said from the beginning, it's very difficult to tell ultimately if it's the right decision or not. But I think for the right people, yes. There's a handful of names we can name that definitely prove that it can make sense.
Yeah.
But it's a risk, and you
Yeah.
just got to be willing to take that risk and bet on yourself.
Good decision?
I think so. It worked out. I think if I were
I
thinking...
have a feeling you're going to get an honorary degree at some point. I just think that's going to happen.
I will take it.
Playing the long game. It's a good idea.
If I were someone thinking about it today, the things I would think about are, like, one, this is a common trope. People hear this all the time. You have to be really passionate about what you're doing. It took a long time, and it wasn't obvious that it was going to be successful for most of it. I remember, it took 7 years, and right now we're doing a talk, so it looks like it was great. But in those 7 years, I was doing the 911 thing. I remember I would go back for Thanksgiving. I dropped out of school. My mom's like, "What are you working on?" And my mom would tell her friends, like, "Oh, it's the 911 thing." It was always in air quotes. And my friends were doing the IB jobs, and I was taking a 90K salary while I was working on the company. And we had some money, but it was early days. It was not clear that it was going to be successful. Persisting through that was really hard. And there was a lot of times where I thought, well, maybe I should just go and take the FANG job that I was thinking about in college. And so you have to be really passionate about the thing. And again, I think it came from this personal experience. I really wanted it to happen. And you have to acknowledge there's no have your cake and eat it too scenario. There's really trade-offs. I missed a lot of experiences in college that I think I would trade them. But my friends were doing things and I was working on the company in college. And I was spending nights when people were going out thinking about this thing. And there was a lot of that, even today, right? I'm still working really hard on the thing post the acquisition. And I think, you just have to be okay with those trade-offs. For me, I don't think I could do anything else. It's a lot of fun.
I will give you something that might make you feel better about your mother's reaction. So I'm running DigitalOcean. We're about to go public, and my mother's still calling me saying, "Karl, I'm really worried about you. I think you should go get a real job." Yeah. I'm like, I don't think you realize what we're building here. So It doesn't end. It's always
my big moment with my mom. We raised our Series B, and so for folks that are in startups, it was Andreessen that did it, and I was super excited about this Series B. So everybody that was my friend was like, okay, maybe they're on to something. My mom had no idea who Andreessen was, and so she would still look similar to you. Go on LinkedIn, look for jobs, and send me them just as a hint. Hey, these people are hiring. I'm like, Mom, we're hiring. What do you mean? Our big moment was we got on the Today Show, which was a huge thing. We did this partnership with Apple where it was basically FaceTime to 911, and it's cool. And she saw our picture. I didn't even tell her. She just watches in the morning, and she saw us on, and it was now she's telling all of her friends. It's the greatest thing. But yeah, that's what it took, the Today Show.
You haven't made it until your mom realizes you've made it. That's when you made it.
And the only way to do that is to get on the Today Show. So that's...
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I should have done that a lot earlier in my career.
I think this does get at something important, though, which is chasing the hot, sexy, cool thing versus going for something that maybe seems less interesting or boring to some people, but you're quite passionate about? I mean, you were building a product that you say at the beginning you didn't think was really even going to be a business or didn't really even have much of a business model. You were giving to the government for free, and that, I mean, right there already just doesn't sound like something that a VC would be interested in. But Karl, you were interested in it. How do you think about chasing the hot thing versus finding value in something like Prepared, which is obviously a huge success now, but at the time probably seemed a little strange to people?
Yeah, you know, there's a really good point that comes out of this, which is people who are building a business for the sake of chasing the business and chasing the money are just not doing it for the right reasons. It doesn't mean they're not going to be successful, but it's just not, you know, they're doing it because they're, again, just chasing the rabbit. And it's not a way to build a really strong, long quality business. So again, some people fight through and they're great operators and they figure it out and they make it happen, they build big businesses. But I really truly believe that the best businesses in the world are the business that build out of true passion. The people who are just building something they really believe is required, they really believe has value, they really are passionate about it, and they're gonna run through walls and live on other people's sofas and do whatever they need to do to make this thing happen. And when you have that kind of passion for a business, you will fight a lot harder. You'll go through the hard times with a lot more conviction. You will take that business a lot further. And again, there's a lot of companies where you hear stories about the early days of Airbnb and the early days of some of these other companies where no one believed in it, but the passion behind it is really what drove that business. So first of all, I truly believe that, you know, there are massive businesses built in every edge of every space. There's like a lot, not everything in the world that is valuable is sexy. I actually think Prepared is very sexy, but not everything in the world that's built is sexy. I think the way I saw it is, you know, Mike said it's kind of a bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of statement to say we weren't really building a business. I think we all knew that we were building something that was going to be truly valuable and truly disruptive to a massive category. We knew that. I think the idea, and you know, we had a lot of conversations about, you know, should we be trying to charge money and make revenue? And we had this whole debate like, no, you need footprint, you need access. If you get access, guess what? No one else is going to get that access, and eventually the value will be realized and it'll be paid for. And so this concept of we weren't really building a business was more about, let's just make sure this thing is really used because we know it's disruptive. We know it's going to change the way public safety works. And if it happens, there is great value on the back end of that. And I think it doesn't matter where you apply that. If you're building something truly disruptive that's truly going to change the way people behave or the way businesses you know, interact or trade or work in whatever capacity that they work, that is potentially market changing, and in market change, you create great value. So I think finding those opportunities is a really, I mean, great investors find them all the time, and you find these businesses that who knew that these companies would be successful, but someone saw it, someone got behind it, and those businesses became, you know, decacorn businesses.
Yeah. Mike, when you start this basically when you're a college student, and then you scale it to over 100 employees, and now within Axon, you've got even more people working under you. As you've scaled this thing, what have you learned about management, how to manage people, how to manage lots of people, and have you learned anything from Karl or the M13 team on how to navigate all of that?
I've learned a bunch from
That
Karl.
was my talk.
I have to
Yale,
say
by
that.
the way. That was exactly my talk at Yale.
It really was. And it wasn't useful until now. We're starting actually scaling.
I'm glad I could help.
Yeah. It is helpful now. I think the right advice depends on your stage. Is that when you're early days, it is just, there's no like culture, there's no like, you know, you just do the thing and you do whatever's necessary to make it happen. And so I was like the product manager, I was the first seller, I was the first onboarding person, et cetera. I think the next stage is early management, and that's hard. I think the biggest thing when you're starting something is letting go of the thing and giving it up to someone. I found myself not really managing, just doing it for them. So if somebody was bad, I also am not good. I've gotten much better at this, but in the early days, I was not good at giving hard feedback. instead of saying, hey, you're not doing this well, I would just be like, yeah, just move to the side, and I would just go start doing it. So I was really, for a long time, managing by just doing it. And we got far by doing that. But over time, started to think, like, how do I teach somebody as opposed to do it myself? Now, the team, so to your point, like the team is almost 500 people across 911 that we're managing, and it's all about culture. Like, how are we setting up frameworks such that people can make decisions that are more like the decisions we'd want them to make? One of the things that this, again, sounds like an obvious thing that I would have heard in a talk like this and probably just nodded my head, like, yes, of course. But like saying what you think and having opinions on things. When we were first starting, I remember the common advice was know the things you're good at and then hire people that are good at that are really good at the things you're not good at. And I did that. I would hire people that were really good at legal. I would hire people that are really good at HR. And what ended up happening was anything that they did, I would just completely be like, yeah, they're doing it. They're the expert. I don't really have an opinion on this. And I found out that like a bunch of our company, I had no idea what was happening. But I had intuitions. It wasn't like I had no opinions on what they were saying. I just assumed, well, they've done it for their whole career. They must be the expert. What I missed was I have information on the whole company, right? They don't have information on what's happening in sales. They don't have information on what's happening in CS. And so like now as I'm starting to think about building our culture, I'm pushing myself to have an opinion on all the things that are happening in the business. And so like Airbnb founder has really gone on the founder mode thing. I think that what he was really trying to say, and which is a good piece of advice, is you need to know the details and have an opinion on those things, even if they're not your core competency. And so that's been a big thing as we started to set the culture, is like, first, do I just know what's happening and how it's improving?
So, Karl, I'm going to want to get the cliff notes on the talk you gave on management, but I'm going to add on a question, which is, has AI changed it? You gave this talk 7 years ago. I'm now hearing executives talk about AI being the new manager. Jack Dorsey's talking about this, saying that he wants AI to be sort of the middle manager, and then all of the AIs report to him. What are your thoughts on management at this point, and has AI changed your perspective?
I mean, there's a big difference between project or program management and people management.
Right.
And I think what Mike's learned, which is a big part of what I was talking about, was that when you're running a big organization, the running of the company is actually the easy part. The people is the hard part. And one of the key things about managing people is what you want to optimize performance of your team. So if you have people that are unhappy, they're going to work less hard. If you have people that are not passionate about the mission, they're going to try less hard to push the mission. If you have people that are fully dedicated, really believe the mission, really follow, enjoy their job, love being at work, then they're not going to leave work. They're going to stay there. They're going to work as hard as they can. It's not going to be anything that you have to feel like you're pushing on people.
Right.
It's something that people just do. Now, I think AI changes the organizational structure. But it doesn't change the fact that you still have people. Until you literally have a one-person organization that has 1,000 agents doing all the work, that might be different. But when you have 500 people with 10,000 agents, you still have 500 people. So you still have to make sure that your people believe in the vision, understand the motivation, are dedicated to the business, love the culture, like all of these things that ultimately result in better output, better performance, better results. And so I don't think that changes. I think the human dynamic will never change when it's amongst the people. The dynamic that might change is just the structure by which everybody operates, the things they lean on, the resources they have access to.
Yeah.
That evolves significantly with AI.
I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll start to wrap up here. Karl, for any aspiring founders or anyone who even wants to be successful in investing or in VC, what would be your advice to young people thinking about these issues today?
I mean, you gotta, we live in a world where you have to be willing to take risk. I said that earlier.
Yeah.
I think there's a whole life and a whole world where people figure out a way to get into a corporate ladder and live their life in the corporate ladder. And there's a safety net in that. And I totally support that. And I think people build wonderful lives living in that world. And people have grown to be incredible CEOs going up that ladder. The world that we live in is a world where we enjoy the risk because we believe in our ability to execute within that risk, whether it's venture or whether it's actually being an entrepreneur. So my advice is really know yourself. If you want to, whatever you want to do, understand what your skills are, understand what your capabilities are, and build conviction in your ability to execute against those. But then also understand what your weaknesses are and build humility around your weaknesses. And then be willing to take the risk, take that step. You can have a very comfortable life taking an easy route, and I don't question anybody that decides to do that. You can take a very hard route, but if it's successful, for me at least, I think the satisfaction you get out of that execution and that outcome is 10x anything you get when you take a safe route. And so that's just the routes I've chosen, it's the routes Mike's chosen. Anyone who is an aspiring entrepreneur, there's a bunch of founders here that I know, they've all made that decision to take a risk on themselves, believe in themselves, and go out and fight the fight to win that battle for your position in the world.
Mike, I will end with you. Your advice, same question to young people thinking about this.
His advice is to talk to me about investing in their company.
That is good advice.
This is to copy you and then say it again. Here we go.
The first piece of advice I would give is first, just do it. Like right now is the best time to build a company. If you think about why does a startup win, it's often that it changes the rules in some way. An incumbent is built on the rules of today or from the past. Right? They had a lot of success in the past, and with AI, things are just changing. The way to build an org is changing. The way that technology applies and solves problems for users is changing. I think startups thrive in change. If you can adapt to that change, you have such an advantage when things are changing because you can pivot so quickly. So I think from a timing perspective, it's the best time to go and start a company. So if you're thinking about it, I think now there's no better time.
Just do it.
Let's do it.
Mike, Karl, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.